Welcome to the Serenity Wealth Now show with Chris Cooper. This is not your typical financial show. As a CPA, licensed insurance agent, and investment advisor, Chris brings the financial conversation to life, where the numbers really matter. Every week, Chris sits down with someone from the community to find the financial lessons hiding in their story. Now, here's your financial friend, Chris Cooper.
All right, good morning. Happy Sunday. We are back, and we are back to school as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about back to school things that are on people's minds right now. It's important. We want to have these conversations because education, it is important. It's one of those things that we do in life for our kids, and we want to make sure we do it in the most efficient way possible and the effective experience for our children. So joining me in the studio remotely, we've got my friend Tucker with LRVS Advisory Group. How are you, Tucker?
Doing great, Chris. How are you?
I'm good, man. So, Tucker, you're out of the Boston area. So I think you guys start school a little bit later than we do here in the St. Louis area, right?
Yeah, we are typically right after Labor Day.
Yeah.
This year, I think, is the latest that Labor Day can possibly be. So we
Yeah.
go back a couple days before, but it's only nice up here 3 months a year. So we want to eke out as much summer as we can get.
That's right. Yeah. And then we've got family in the East Coast, so I get that too. And I'm always like, wow, that seems like it's very late, but there's a reason for that, right? So,
Yeah.
And right now it's miserable here. It's hot, it's humid. We need to get the kids into the air conditioning, and I want some normalcy in my life. So back to school is an important topic, and I think that back to school shopping season is here, and some of those costs we're seeing out there are a little bit higher than people are accustomed to, right?
Absolutely. Clothes, shoes,
All of the
groceries,
Yeah. Now,
paper, pencils, pens. Yeah,
do you guys have tax holidays and things like that save people on sales tax?
we do. We had tax-free weekend. I think it was a week ago or
Yeah.
so. Um, There's no tax on clothing in Massachusetts,
Mhm.
if I recall correctly, and sneakers and
Sure.
shoes fall into that
Yeah.
category as well. But it was tax-free weekend for purchases up to 2,500,
Yeah.
I think, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and that does help a little bit, but I mean, we are seeing higher costs, and part of that is just driven right by transportation. I mean, transportation costs drives a lot of things because we don't always just get things from the United States, and so when you're bringing things in and gas prices are what they are, it does increase the cost of things along the way. And so we are seeing that and hearing that, but what is one great thing you can do to help yourself when you're shopping for things to lower your costs is try to do things on those tax-free weekends, right? On those things that are available. So when we think about higher costs, right, the other thing that I think is going to be coming up is insurance costs. And people don't think about this, but there's always this consumer price index that inflation is based on, and that's a broad basket of goods. We always think groceries and produce and meats, of course, but there's more to it than all those things. It's all these other categories as well. But some categories move higher than others, and insurance is one that you and I have talked about in the past that actually tends to have a higher inflation rate than the average CPI.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on that topic of it's different in different sectors of the economy at different times. Like you remember trying to buy a new car or a used car
Yeah.
right out of COVID. It was that was, I don't know, 10, 12, 14% inflation.
Oh, the
And
used market went crazy, right?
it went crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was no inventory because people were hanging on to them and they
Right.
were not taking public transportation, and there just wasn't the amount of available cars for people to purchase. But on the insurance point, we've seen it move a lot. I think it was the last couple of years, it's been up double digits.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we look at for clients is we try to, even though we don't do P&C insurance for our clients, it's something that we want to check the box on, make sure that they have the appropriate coverage. If there is a claim, they have the right person to service it and guide them through that process if there's an accident. And make sure that they're not just automatically blindly renewing without looking at coverages and pricing it out against different options.
That's right.
And when it's a small dollar amount, for a single driver in Boston, maybe it's $1,200, $1,500 a year for auto policy.
Sure.
When you have a family that has 2 or 3 kids that are driving and parents, and they have 4 vehicles, you get a 20% increase on a $5,000 premium. And
Uh-huh.
next thing you know, you're auto renewing at $6,000. And it's, it hurts. It adds up.
It's a lot, and it's big money, and especially if you start getting these newer kids. Now you've got kiddos yourself. So how old are your kiddos?
I've got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and 3.5-year-old.
All right, so you got a little bit of time before you hit the driving kind of time frame.
Thank God. Yeah.
We are at the point, we've got a 20 and a 17-year-old, so both of them are in cars, and I feel that pain of adding these additional drivers. Now I think we're starting to get to the point where I'm starting to get some price breaks because we're starting to see good driving records. They're getting older. All of those things help, but you got to shop these things around, just because some carriers will look at a teenage driver very different than another one.
Absolutely. And it's something that, happens in every kind of insurance industry or subcategory,
Mm.
right? Certain companies, the underwriters look at it and say, we're looking for this particular type of risk, or we want more teen drivers, or we want more senior drivers, or we don't want either of those categories. And then their premiums reflect that.
Yeah.
And it's different year to year based on how much of that has come onto the books or fallen off of the books. And, people just frequently put it on autopilot and say, I've been with Amica, or I've been with Mass Mutual forever. And,
Right.
I'm staying there.
That blind kind of loyalty, but at the end of the day, it's important to shop that stuff around. So I'm a big believer in that. And to your point, I'm not somebody that necessarily does the property and casualty, home and auto type of insurance. For those that don't know what property and casualty means, that's home and auto. But that doesn't mean it's not important, because we look at, as a financial guide for people, I look at people's overall financial situation to make sure we've got the right coverage. And a perfect example of that in this category of insurance coverage is, umbrella policies. I think umbrella policies are so important because that umbrella coverage gives you the ability to ensure that if you have something that isn't meeting the policy coverage, it's that gap, and it provides a lot of protection for a fairly reasonable cost.
Yeah, I would say more than a reasonable cost, and it's
Yeah.
often overlooked.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to uh, add up to a certain asset level or net worth level where people want to get their hands on that if,
Mhm.
God forbid, there is an accident or something like
Yeah.
that. And regardless of whether or not you're at fault, uh, when the insurance companies sue each other or try to protect their own pockets, they're going after anywhere else that they can get it. Having umbrella coverage is a nice way to stopgap some of that.
And insurance companies and lawyers, they see this. They know who you are. They can look at that. In today's digital world,
Yeah.
it's very easy to pick that kind of stuff up. So you want to make sure your coverage has that, so that your own personal liability is not the one that pays that bill. Right. So
Yep,
big deal.
absolutely.
And shopping that does give you the ability to help avoid some of those inflationary adjustments. Unfortunately, it is one of those categories that does tend to go up. Home insurance is an interesting one because you get claims. Now, we have a lot of hail and we have wind damage concerns in our area. You guys, I think, are a little bit different with that. You guys don't get the wind damage per se, like the tornado activity that we get. But I also think you get some snow-related issues that we don't necessarily have to deal with.
Yep. Nor'easters during the wintertime,
Yeah.
storm surge in the summertime, flood area and flood coverages have changed a lot as there's a little bit of a erosion on the coastline
Yeah.
or rising sea levels. And then trees are kind of the biggest one.
Oh,
And
because the frozen trees will, yeah.
yeah, limbs come down on
Yeah.
top of the houses. So when they go out and do the survey for the insurance coverage, it's typically, all right, which trees are liabilities or which ones need to come down, or yeah. And the other issue that we've seen with not just rates increasing is non-renews.
Right.
So you'll have a carrier that you've been with for a certain number of years and they just drop you.
Yeah.
And then you got to go out and you got to shop and you got to start all over again.
Which could
And
be
then
helpful to you, but you don't
it could be
know,
very
right?
helpful. Yep.
It's good to get in that routine, right? Not just
Yes.
stay with it. And I think the reason they do that, to your point from earlier, it's because they look at their risk book and they go, okay, well, we've got enough here. We need to move over into this direction. So
Exactly right.
and that's why I'm a big believer. And I'm going to apologize for all my property and casualty home auto folks that are captive to one organization. I think you should always work with one individual. I think that that individual should be able to look at a lot of different companies for you, because it gives you the ability to shop from not within one organization's policies and availability. So
Totally agree.
yeah, it's just the way it is. And that's just unfortunate that some companies are built like that. We know who we're talking about. We don't need to mention them by name. But it's an important aspect that can help control costs that are really hard to do. Now, getting back onto the school and the education thing, another piece of inflation that is really hard and it outpaces the typical inflation rate that we talk about in our economy is school costs, tuition. Tuition is always a higher elevated level of inflation than most other items. And it's something that's also kind of hard to control. Now, I think, our generation, well, my generation, I'm a little older, I think. But we went into this thing where we had to go to college. Like it was a thing. Like, our parents were like, no, you got to go to college. And we're changing that. We're getting a little bit more in this country back into that trade school route because college isn't for everybody. But man, college tuition has really risen a whole heck of a lot over the course of the last decade or two.
Tremendously. Yeah, I think when I went to Northeastern, I started in '07. I got out in 12. They do a 5-year program there for a standard undergraduate because you do 2 6-month
Yeah.
internship or co-op opportunities. So it takes 5 years to complete the coursework, but 4-year degree.
Yep.
I want to say it started at 42 my freshman year, and when I got out as a senior, it was 65
A year.
a year. And I think right now it's high 90s, if
Yeah.
not into 6 figures.
Yeah. And because of these things, we used to have a situation where we'd have a lot of employers that were helping to cover some of those costs. I don't think that happens the same way as it used to either. And that's just something that I have noticed that I don't hear that being talked about anymore. And that's, obviously military is a great way to get some of those college paid for, which is, I love that, by the way. If you're going to serve our country, paying for your education, that's the least we can do. And I love that program. So,
Yep.
but there's just not a lot of other companies that just go out and say, hey, we'll pay for these kind of things, or, it just doesn't happen anymore. They don't have to.
I seldom hear of it.
Yeah.
The other thing that used to happen was the other thing that used to be possible was paying for your own way through college or your own tuition. Like
Right.
my father-in-law went to Northeastern, and I talked to him. He was in the, I want to say it was mid 80s. He said he made enough money on his co-ops to cover the next semester's tuition.
It's kind of
And
crazy.
that's a impossibility
It
in
is.
today's world.
And I'm sitting here thinking about all the money coming in through college sports, this whole NIL thing, and all these college athletes now, all this money coming in. You'd think that some of that would actually reduce the price of education, but it just doesn't. And it drives me nuts. And we could talk about student loans and all those things being a little bit too high, but what are you going to do? Like, it's just really hard to figure out a way to fund a college experience in that kind of a dynamic. And it's going to cost you in loans, obviously, because of that price.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think to your point earlier, the landscape's changing with the ability to self-educate or do coursework online. I'm divided on what I see as the future or what I may want for my kids. I don't think you can replace the 4 years of socialization and experience of
Right.
college.
Especially in today's digital world.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the younger generation or kids are a little bit more attached to Snapchat, video games, and Instagram and TikTok. For me, growing up, it was go ride your bike around the neighborhood and knock on someone's door, see if they want to go play. That's how you know who's around and what they're
throw
doing.
the bikes were, and that's like, oh, that's where we're supposed to go today.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I don't know if it'll be a standard 4-year traditional college experience for everybody, or if it'll be some type of trade school or community college and then transfer into another institution later on. A lot of different ways that you can go about it. But it's certainly not going to get any cheaper.
It's just not. And we'll come to that point here in a little while too, because that's one thing that we just don't talk about, is that we expect costs to go down, and they just tend to not go down. They just maybe tend to not rise anymore. One thing that we do in Missouri, and I don't know if you have this program in Massachusetts, I'm always interested in hearing from other states. if you don't have this, you're going to be really jealous because it's a really cool program. It's called the A plus program in the state of Missouri. And what we can do in the state of Missouri, if you're in a high school student, you get good attendance. And I'm talking like 97% here. I'm not talking like 100% attendance. I'm talking reasonable attendance expectations, reasonable GPA. I don't even think it's like a 3.5 or 3.7. I think it's reasonable. It's attainable. And then you have to do a certain number of community service hours, doing tutoring work, some special needs things, or doing like camp counseling, those kind of things. You do those 3 requirements your junior, senior year. You have the ability to have Missouri will fund your first 2 years of college in a community college. So you walk away with an associate's degree paid for under that A plus program. It's a scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
What a great program. I don't understand why other states don't adopt this kind of thing. Because at minimum, people walk away with an associate's and say, hey, got my associates. That's good. It's not for me. And I go this direction. And, or you walk into your 4-year degree with a associate's degree that now you're only paying those higher prices for those final 2 years. And I don't know, Tucker, I'm sure you look at some resumes and things with your firm, but you probably don't look at the first 2 years they went to school. You care about where they went to their bachelor degree and interview the person, right?
Or the diploma is.
Yeah. So an associate's degree transfers. And it saves you so much money just doing that step alone, regardless of having that A plus program, is a way to reduce your costs on the educational experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great program. I don't know if Massachusetts has anything to that level. I'm sure there are some grants or scholarships or awards that are out there. I don't know on the state level that they offer something like that. That's great.
It's pretty cool. It's unique to Missouri from what I've gathered so far. And I ask it quite a bit because even our neighboring states in Kansas, I'm like, surely you guys have something like this. And I'm like, no, that's amazing. So, folks, if you don't know what the A plus program is and you got somebody entering in those years, think about it, understand what it is, encourage your kiddos to look at it seriously. Because I mean, I played rugby when I was in college, and you know what I did really well? Practice rugby. You know what I didn't think about doing very well? Applying myself and the money I was paying towards my college experience at the time. So it took me until my junior, senior year to really understand those kind of things. Sophomore year too, actually, technically. But, those are important things. We got to think about it because we're young kids when these decisions are being made around us, right? Fortunately, we need to think about those a little bit differently as well, especially with these rising costs. So.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard to know with certainty at 18 years old or 17 years old, depending on when you graduate.
It is.
Where you want to spend the next 4 years of your life and where you want that to lead you long term.
Right.
It's so challenging.
It is. It is. And there's very few of us that make that transition into the same exact career we thought we were going to be, right? So.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. And it's just you got to understand those pros and cons of all that kind of stuff. And going through that associate's degree program, community college type of a route, it does not have that same stigma that it used to. And if you've got communication skills in today's world, that is a skill that is losing its ability, and it's not as common as it used to be, right? Because we're just so digital.
Certainly.
So.
Yep, and I think it's such an important one. Most of business is still a people business. Certainly on the sales side, it's a relationship business.
Right.
People do business with people that they know, like, and trust. Right. And if you can't clearly articulate your thoughts or be in front of somebody or have a conversation, you're going to get replaced by somebody that can.
Absolutely. And really that goes back to, same thing with our business and what we do, right? I mean, I'm in the people business. You're in the people business. We know a lot on the finance stuff, and we can talk about all the different, what's going on in the markets, all those kind of things. But at the end of the day, if I can't articulate it in a way that makes it easy for you to understand and feel confident in, that message isn't going anywhere, And so It's very important to understand that the communication skill is really more important than anything, in my opinion.
Without a doubt. Industry knowledge, market knowledge, economic understanding is kind of table stakes or a baseline. You expect that when you go talk to somebody like us.
Yeah.
What it's really hard to replicate or find the right fit for a lot of clients that are seeking advisors or maybe working with some now is how does this person communicate with me?
Sure.
When I ask a question, do I get an answer that I understand, that I feel more confident in making a decision around? And that's a hugely important skill.
It is. It is. Now, how do you, when you position yourself within the folks that you work with, what are the kind of things that you try to make sure that you offer to the folks you work with, the families you help?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to sum it up is that we try to act as our client's family CFO. So
Love it.
we want to be the first call when you have something going on that's financially going to impact your situation.
Yeah.
And that's different, right? Most people hear financial planner, wealth manager, investment advisor, and they think money manager.
Right.
That is a small segment of what we do.
Uh huh.
Yes, it's important. It's very important that we have your investment objectives lined up with your goals, your timeline, et cetera. But it's the little things that we help and facilitate that really keep clients with us long term.
Yeah.
It's helping them look at a job offer and figure out, is the total benefits between flex spending account, health savings account, 401k, salary, bonus, equity compensation. How does that line up with what I'm looking at here?
Yeah.
And some of those things aren't being talked about. They're not being looked at. They think, oh yeah, I'm making 175 here. I can get 185 here. I'm going to go take that. It's like,
Right.
well, all in comp here was closer to 230 and
Yeah.
all in comp here is closer to 210.
Yeah.
So you're really going backwards. And let's think about that.
Right.
We touched on the insurance thing. That's something that we tend to do for clients as well. It's just a quick policy audit or review, make sure, hey, when was the last time you looked at it, updated it, try to help facilitate the conversation around estate planning, tax planning, make sure that if you have other professionals in that area, we're coordinating the conversation, make
And
sure
I think
everybody's on
that's
the
a
same
very
page.
important one. Absolutely. Estate planning is not just a legal conversation. People think of it as they go, "Oh, I need to call an attorney and get an estate plan together and, develop a will," but you really need a trust and all those things. But there are so many more aspects that are really financial focused. People just lose sight of that and they don't understand it. And so you and I are very similar in that way, that it's super important to have that conversation and to have that financial and that legal side on the same side as you. There's a reason in the corporate world, right? You have your CFO, you have your legal counsel, you have your HR all on your table working out for you. And sure, you're the CEO of your life. You should make your decision. But all those experts helping to support the overall initiative drive a big impact. Big deal.
Yep. Yep.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about it. So we got education, obviously high. You're seeing some high pricing on groceries and things like that too, I assume. And that's,
Yes.
yeah, everywhere.
Insanely high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's never going down. And I think that we just need to understand that people think inflation and they think, oh, well, I'm going to be happy when prices come back down where they were pre-COVID. That's not real. That's never going to happen. I don't care what anyone's telling you. Don't wait for it. Prices don't go down. And actually, when they do go down, it's called deflation. And from an economic perspective, Tucker and I would tell you that's actually bad, right? So we don't want that. Unfortunately, it's higher prices are here. We ran into a long time where we had very stagnant pricing, right? And that was wonderful. But you know what those companies did? They had no reason. They couldn't tell you that they needed to increase their price because they had no metric to do so. So they didn't do that. They were still increasing their prices on their wages, right? Their salaries. They were offering those kind of benefits that did continue to increase, but there was no price change taking place. And so now you get metrics giving people the ability to raise price. And of course, corporations are going to raise price. Those evil corporations that are, messing up everything in our economy, right? It's not real either. They're there. They have to be accountable for shareholders. But we see that, and I assume you would say that we're not going to see any price reductions coming anytime soon.
Yeah. I think price reductions, you may get gasoline price, right? That's going to
That's the
fluctuate. That
big
might
one.
come up,
Yeah,
that goes up, that goes down, right?
yeah. And you got
Um,
eggs and commodities,
eggs,
those kind
milk,
of
what?
things.
Yeah, that stuff's going to change. But the like, you're not going to go to I don't know what's a popular chain restaurant out by you guys.
Oh, well, that's so, man, I don't know. Why you got to put me on the
I don't know.
spot
What's a
like
good
that?
burger joint by you guys?
Nice. Well, so just call it like an Outback. There we go. We got everyone
Sure.
knows those, right? So there you go.
Yeah, you go to Outback and you see a steak for $12. You're not going to go there 5 years later and expect that steak is going to be eight.
Right.
Right? It's probably going to be 14. It might be 16.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 28. It doesn't move backwards
Right.
in that same way.
And that's an important aspect that gets us into planning for inflation for the long run, right? People understand your life in terms of what it costs you today, right? And it's easy for us to say, well, it didn't used to cost us this much. That's fine. But you know what? You could take that argument across any segment of time. And that's the biggest thing. Right now, you hear a lot of the news on social media. Costs have never been higher. Costs have never been higher on any day. Tomorrow, costs are going to be higher. It's just the way that inflation works. The cost of living does increase over time. And we make sure that as financial professionals that we're making sure you're accounting for those adjustments, because maybe not tomorrow they go up, but I guarantee you 10, 15, 20 years from now, those prices are going to be higher. And we got to factor that cost in, because you should be able to deserve to live the life you have today on tomorrow's cost, right?
Certainly. And there's a couple of key elements within that. And depending on the level of detail that you want to get it with the planning, we typically we run higher inflation. We have baseline inflation for, normal cost of living.
Yeah.
We typically reduce the Social Security COLA.
I do the
We
same.
usually cut that in half or do zero, just to, there's a lot of question marks. And that could be a whole other podcast for you at some point in
No
the future
kidding.
of that one,
Yeah.
right? But
Let's save that one until
uh,
2032, where they actually have to do something about it, right?
yeah, exactly. Education is another big one where
Yeah.
we run that typically closer to 7 or 8% a year,
Yep.
and healthcare. Those are the two that really stick out as those costs are going up and they're not slowing down.
That's right. Yeah. So, and when we think about healthcare, and that's something that, we have open enrollment coming soon. We got Medicare open enrollment rates those metrics will be coming out later next month, sometime late September, I guess, right? So we're starting to get into that season. We haven't heard any analysis at this point in time on the cost of increases or anything like that, but I'm sure they're going to be higher. It's just,
I don't think they're going backwards.
yeah, that's right. Well, we just covered that nothing does, right? But healthcare especially. And with that also comes into that long-term care planning arena too. When you get into those assisted living and those kind of community costs, retirement communities, memory care, there's a lot of costs that go up there and increase because it's multiple facets, right? You have level of care, right? When you go from just home care to assisted living to memory care, those big bumps are service related bumps. Those are more significant, but then you also get just general pricing increases, and those tend to be a lot higher in those mechanisms, in those arenas as well.
Yeah.
So got to plan for that kind of stuff, and you got to understand what that inflation is, because at the end of the day, the fun things to talk about and what we do, we get to have some really cool conversations, right? About people's, where are we going on vacation? I mean, we spent some time right before this talking about your recent vacation, right? We want to enjoy those times, but next year, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, flights are going to be higher. Gas is going to probably be higher, even if it is a little bit, different than what it is today. All those costs are going to be higher, but we want to make sure we can do them, because the reason people work so hard is to be able to enjoy the lifestyle we all deserve, because that's why we save. We don't save just to sit there and accumulate a bunch of money, right? That doesn't work. I assume so. You don't have a lot of that, I assume, either. They wanted to have a
No.
purpose, right?
Yep. That's it. Money without purpose is valueless, really.
That's
It's
right.
building for something that you look forward to and enjoy.
Yeah, creating those experiences. And that's really what it's important and what it's all about. So make sure you plan for today's fun on tomorrow's budget as well. And unfortunately, inflation's not something people talk about and plan for. And that's why I think it's so important to have that professional in your life, making sure you think about these kind of things, right?
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, Tucker, thank you for spending some time talking about inflation today, what's going on in the world. And, we got back to school coming up here, so I'm sure you're going to get to hear all the cool back to school stories with some of your kiddos as well. And I'm going to get to enjoy some scheduling with my kid, who wakes up at like noon right now. So, so
I appreciate you having me on. Great conversation.
thanks,
Really,
buddy.
really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. We'll talk soon. Folks, inflation, it's real. It happens to us, and it's not something that we can necessarily be just sitting there proactively doing some things to mitigate against. The best ways to do it are to price things out, make good financial decisions, think about those big ticket items, and think about doing some things differently to make sure it fits within your overall budget. Costs do tend to go up. Right? I wish that I could say that I think costs are going to go down. Sure, some commodities and things like that will tend to decrease based on what's going on in the world around us. But think about the prices of gas and eggs and meats and all those things 30 years ago, 50 years ago, right? Prices do go up over time. And that's really what the inflationary impact that we tend to talk about is. You've got to make sure you can live your life, the life you live today, in terms of tomorrow's dollars, because you don't want to just cut back on the fun and the reasons you save and the enjoyment you get in life because, prices increased. You want to make sure you have the ability to invest in things that keep up with inflation, that maintain the right growth path, that get you the ability to afford lifestyle that you deserve at a cost in tomorrow's dollars as well. That's the conversation that needs to take place. And when you're ready to have your own conversation, give us a call. Until then, check us out and follow us on social media for more insights, information, and of course, some fun with finance along the way as well. We'll see you next week.
Serenity Now!
Serenity Wealth Now can be found wherever you are at serenitywealthnow.com, on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and on News Talk STL Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. When you're ready for your own conversation, schedule some time with Chris by visiting serenitywealthnow.com. That's serenitywealthnow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors.